Shalom. I'm serving on D. Most of you know me as Vermont. And this is Kohaya, which stands for Kingdom of Heaven is at hand. I'm coming to you with another produced video. And this will come out of the Word of the Week series. And this particular video will be entitled The House. You know, I was sitting here thinking, before I decided to produce and make this video, I was thinking about all the things that's happening in our world today. And as many of you already know, this Ebola pandemic is running rampant throughout the United States and around the world. And with this pandemic, this epidemic, we are witnessing quarantine zones being established, where they have already established quarantine zones. And those zones are comprised of the northern zone, which go all the way up to Canada, the western zone that goes from Colorado all the way out to California, the eastern zone, which covered the eastern states, the Midwest zone, which covered the area where I live. I live in Missouri. And the southwestern zone, and that zone goes all the way down to Central America. Also, this quarantine zone comes the quarantine stations. And you have quarantine stations from Washington, state of Washington, all the way through, down in Portland, I think, Portland, Oregon, into California, and Arizona, and all the way down into Texas and the southern states, Mississippi, of course, Georgia, and Alabama, I believe, Florida. And these are particular zones that goes all the way up into the eastern states. And some of them, I think one is in Chicago and one is in Detroit. So you have quarantine zones. You have all these things that's happening. And I was sitting at my desk and I was thinking about these things, and it dawned on me that we are in some very, 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 did I say very? Very perilous times. This gives a whole new meaning to the prophecy that Paul told Timothy when he said in the last days perilous times shall come. And we are in those times now as we speak. Not only quarantine zones, you have the man of sin that helped establish all this, and you begin to understand why he signed those executive orders. And not only the executive orders, and the executive orders I'm talking about are the ones that he signed to quarantine people that have some type of respiratory disease or signs of respiratory disease. And not only that, he also established the healthcare reform, and now that's the law. And so you see how all these things tie in together. And I was just sitting at my desk thinking about these things, and I decided to produce a video. And not only that, you have this is a bio warfare. I believe it's a bio weapon that will be used to, for the population reduction. And so you have to keep that in mind, that it's true. We are living in perilous times. We're living in turbulent times. And we see those things happening. And this man of sin, he is so shrewd, he is so smooth, that he got a significant amount of the population believing that he's in over his head. They actually think this man don't know what he's doing. Oh man, I tell you, that is shrewd. That is smooth beyond any recognition. You can't recognize and you can't point out that type of smoothness, because you got people thinking that this man of sin is absolutely clueless of what he's doing. And that is not the case, brothers and sisters. He knows exactly what he's doing. And so we living in terrible times, and that's why I wanted to, produce this video, which is entitled The House. And without further ado, with that in mind, I want to draw your attention to Psalm 127. Psalm 127. It reads on this wise. It say, except Yah build the house, they labor in vain that build it. Except Yah keep the city, the watchman waketh but in vain. Unless the Father is involved in this house. And the reason why I want to talk about the house, because of what is going on. You're going to need a place of protection with these quarantine zones. Let's get back to the quarantine zone. If they quarantine you for any reason, which has been signed into law, they can quarantine you if you're in the airport and you cough, and there's a good reason for them to believe that you have some kind of disease, a contagious disease. They can quarantine you for 21 days. They can take you to a quarantine station, and you know how this society has gone vaccine crazy. They are kicking with this vaccination campaign throughout the country. And so there's a good possibility that they can give you some type of vaccination while you're in those quarantine, and they can put you in there for any particular reason. They can find out if you can have a warrant. You get quarantined, guess what? You're arrested after you serve your time in being in quarantine. And this one particular lady, she was quarantined in New York, and she was given limited food, limited water, and didn't have the accommodations to, the restrooms and stuff like that. I mean, this country is changing, and so you're going to need a place of safety. You're going to need a place of refuge. And so you have different people, they are just like the preppers. They have decided to, relocate. A lot of them live in rural areas. Some of them live underground. You have underground cities. There are cities underground, literally. You got people that live underground. You have people that understand what's about to happen. Everything that you know, the world that you've known is really gone. And the world to come, as our brother Yahya say, our teacher, the world to come is here. And so what you have to understand, brothers and sisters, these things that's taking place is a indication that the world to come has already arrived. And people, all they want to do is go to the game, go to the football game, go to the baseball game, go to the latest movie that's coming out. They want to be entertained. And they have dumbed the population down with entertainment. But then you have another group of people that understand what's going on, so they fortified themselves. They fortified themselves in underground. They fortified themselves in the rural areas. They fortified themselves being preppers and getting, prepared for the doomsday. But we see here that what they're trying to do is provide some type of fortification for themselves. But except Yah. If Yah is not involved, except he build the house, except he build that place of fortitude for you, except he is involved, all your labor, all of your efforts, everything that you put into trying to sustain yourself and put safeguards around you and yours is in vain. That's what it says. Except Yah build a house. The laborers, they labor in vain that build it. Verse 2 it say, it is in vain for you to rise up early, to sit up late, to eat the bread of sorrows. For so he giveth his beloved sleep. What is he talking about? It's pointless, meaningless for you to rise up early or stay up late trying to protect your stuff. Because if the Father is not involved, and if the Father isn't, if if the Father is not in the center of what you're doing, if he's not the focal point, all the rising up early, staying up late at night, watching and trying to preserve your stuff, it's going to be in vain. Something or someone gonna come along, and your stuff will be taken from you or destroyed by the elements. Something will happen. And so the reason why I wanted to talk about this, because the Father has to be in the center of all you do. All of you, and I know many people, they understand, they feel like, I hear a lot of people that's in the Christian church, they tell me, well, Jesus got my back. Well, I'm here to tell you, brothers and sisters, Jesus that you know of, this Jesus that your oppressors gave you, he's going out like Kunta Kinte. And I'm not trying to say that to be funny. I'm trying to give you an illustration and trying to paint a picture so you can understand how serious this is. You got to understand that the things that our oppressors gave us and what they taught us, all those things, it must come to naught. The Father going to bring it down, and he's bringing judgment. And so all these things that's happening, and I just talked about Ebola. We didn't even talk about the garnishment, of checks. Over 4 million people already had their checks garnished because of the economy. The economy is toast and everything. I mean, there's not enough resources to go around. There's not. Many people believe that there are, but it's not. And so this is why they must reduce the population. I mean, there are the times that's ahead is like something that you have never seen before. And so you're going to need a place of protection. You're going to need a place of refuge. And many people have provided that for themselves, but the scriptures say, except Yah, build your house, build that place of protection, build that fortitude, that fortress, that strong tower, except the Father is involved. Everything you do, all of your labors, all your effort, every piece of ingenuity and ideas and all the different brilliant plans and schemes that you can come up with is all for naught. You see, brothers and sisters, this scripture was written to, I believe, our brother Solomon wrote this. And if anybody knew about building, Solomon did. And if anybody knew about the Father building the project, Solomon knew. Because the idea to build a temple that Solomon built, it came to David. And David, he communicated with the Father, and the Father said, no, you're not going to build my house. Your son will build a house. And then, but what did David do? He began to prepare and to set things up for the building of the temple, even though the Father told David, Yah Almighty, or Yahuwah, told David that he was not authorized to build it. David, what he did, or Dawid, what he did was begin to plan and devise the different materials and put together the different materials for the building of the temple. But guess what? Yah was in it. So Solomon, he understood that. That's why when Solomon wrote Ecclesiastes, he started off by saying, vanity of vanities. All is vanity. Why? Because he understood the Father blessed him to live long enough to see that all and everything that he tried to do and all the accomplishments and endeavors that he tried to achieve, they were all in vain because the Father was not in the center of all that he desired to do. And so he write and say, except the Father build a house, say it is in vain for you to rise up early. Then he goes on to say in verse 3 and said, lo, children are a heritage of Yah, and the fruit of the womb is his reward. Now we talking about a house. Now then he talked about a city. He talked about your surroundings, your environment. Now your posterity. Except your children are except the father being in the center of your children, then all your labor is in vain. They are heritage. They belong to us. And so the point of this message is that the father must be in the center, because many people, they are trying to fortify themselves, the ones that understand, and those that don't understand, they just out there just doing whatever, having a good time, partying and kicking it up, and they don't understand what's going on. But you must come to the realization that the father must build your house. Why? Because the father's materials are different than ours.